Sean is shown in the opening scene of episode 6 donning a cooling vest and sweatshirt. It was difficult for Leah to keep the hospital operating because the heat was damaging the servers. If they all went down, the hospital wouldn't be able to function. The senior home's electricity went out, therefore all surgeons were requested to assist in the emergency room. Dr. Andrews ordered his team to examine the seniors for any new or continuing illnesses. Dr. Park was working with Mrs. Edna Hamilton, a nice woman, when she passed out on him, but he was able to revive her. As a result, they discovered that she had a tumor in her middle and had fewer than 6 months to live. Due to her fragile state, Park didn't want to take a chance by operating on her, but she still needed a second opinion. After examining Edna, Dr. Glassman concurred with Park. However, Edna wished for a longer life after the operation. Glassman informed Park that the operation was being done. Park was aware that it was a danger she couldn't take, but Edna made the choice. She had to have her kidney removed while she was under anesthesia. Park was worried that it would make her life less enjoyable. He was convinced otherwise by Glassman. Edna was doing well after her surgery and tucked into her favorite butterscotch pudding. Working with an elderly woman named May, played by Susan Rutten, who had just hours to live, was Alan and Paris. She was primarily interested in visiting Paris with her late spouse Marty. Paris sat with May, who was getting sicker as he did so. Alan came up with the brilliant idea to send May to Paris using VR headsets. She grabbed Paris's hand and inquired about Marty's satisfaction with the trip. He responded on his behalf, yes. In light of May's passing, Paris thanked Alan for her efforts. I told her she was a wonderful person. A drive was taken to locate one of their oldest patients after doctors Resnick and Wilkie misplaced him. Arthur was a man who was around 100 years old. Resnick had been moody lately, and Wilkie had noticed her on a dating app. He was curious to know what was wrong. They eventually located Art. Art was discovered having never left the hospital when they came back. Who was the additional elderly man that Resnick and Wolf discovered? Without success, they called each senior facility. Jerome discovered who Sam was. An attorney son of his was on the way to pick him up. The two were remorseful for kidnapping the man and worried about possible legal repercussions. The man was grateful to the surgeons because they prevented him from passing out from exposure to the heat when Sam's son and his granddaughter arrived. Resnick then admitted that her desire for a child was what was filling the void she was experiencing, rather than not having a boyfriend. When Dr. Powell confesses to Sean that she was the one who persuaded Dr. Lim not to proceed immediately with the experimental surgery he designed, things become complicated. Sean, who is her supervising attendant, struggles to interact with others. He complains to her, saying he has more surgical experience than she does. She does, however, have more physical and emotional experience due to her disability. Then Brooks, who was dehydrated, was treated by Sean and Powell. Brooks called Powell out for her treatment of Brooks. When Sean complained about Powell, Brooks offered him some advice, being a business owner himself. Brooks collapsed abruptly and lost his breath. In the server room, which was cooler, Sean and Powell evaluated Brooks' situation. Sean, on the other hand, persisted in objecting to Powell's suggestions and told her to go somewhere else. Lee was abrasive, just like Sean, when they spoke about his problems with Powell. Sean informed Powell of his distaste for her while performing Brooks' surgery. She refuted the assertion that Lim's refusal to undergo the suggested surgery was the real cause. Suddenly, they discovered Brooks needed a complicated surgery. For once, they agreed. As they conferred later, they continued to disagree, and Sean pulled her off the case. Brooks wanted Powell back on his case to challenge Sean made for better medicine. A principle devised by Israeli intelligence of the 10th man rule. And if Sean didn't want to work with Powell, he would replace Sean as his surgeon. Powell made a visit to Lim in an effort to persuade her to reconsider her health. She was healthy, not ill. She then extended an invitation to watch a wheelchair basketball match. Although Lim was initially hesitant, she ultimately had a great time shooting hoops. There she met and disagreed with a pediatrician who was confined to a wheelchair clay. While this was going on, Sean complained to Dr. Glassman, saying that he didn't like Powell and that Glassman also believed it was crucial to get along with her. Powell was brought back into the case and made a vain attempt to reach a compromise. As hard as Lee tried to keep the servers running, they crashed. As a backup supply for the hospital, Leah had the brilliant idea to invert car batteries and it worked. Sean attempted to silence Powell while she was having surgery, but she insisted that he keep instructing her. They all share the fact that they are the outliers, the ones who question accepted wisdom, she told him. The ear's power went out suddenly. At that point, they decided on a surgical strategy used during the Civil War to carry out procedures successfully and save Brooks' life. Powell and Sean then found some common ground with regard to historical medicine.